All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I am, as always, on the internet, which is where everyone lives for now. It looks like things are maybe getting a bit better soon, that people can start, leaving their basements and actually going out in the world again. But the guest on this episode is someone that I haven't talked to on the show before. I've been familiar with your music for a long time. I have your first EP, and I've sort of followed you on social media and heard a few things here and there over the years. But I think the best way to sort of formally kick this off is if you want to introduce yourself and maybe give a bit of background about what it is that you do musically.
Yeah, Anine, hello. Thanks so much for having me, Sam. It's really exciting to be on this podcast. I love podcasts. It gives me a good excuse to use my new mic, which is like the podcasting
It's
mic.
very nice, yeah, yeah.
And so I was like, oh, yes, I get to use my mic on the podcast. So that's awesome. Yeah, I am based in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Of course, singer songwriter. I added it up the other day, and it's been almost 10 years that I've been sharing my music with the world, which is really exciting. And I've been 100% employed by music for a year and a half, almost 2 years now of that decade, which feels really, really good. Um, I do kind of a folk soul sound these days. I love experimenting with all sorts of different genres, but that's kind of the thing that I share with the world. And I'm super excited for this upcoming year because I've got a whole lot of things I'm working on. I really took the time, during the whole panini thing to focus on refining myself and figuring out, like, okay, why am I doing this? What is this for? I love singing songs, I love sharing them, but why? What
Yeah.
is the purpose of this? It can't just be, oh, I'm playing a song I wrote about a boy. For me, it's got to be more than that. I need to be affecting change and positively impacting my community. So I'm feeling really good. I'm heading into the studio shortly to record a whole bunch of stuff that I've been working on, and I'm really looking forward to, sharing a couple little sneak peeks of that kind of stuff with you today.
Right on. That's awesome. I guess maybe a good place to go from there then is, like you just said about sharing with the community. It seems like from reading up on you and looking at your social media and things that you've been very involved in sort of educational type projects and ways to connect with youth, right? Particularly. So how did that get started?
That got started because I I feel like I couldn't have gotten where I am. I know I couldn't have gotten where I am without so many people who mentored and supported me and all these resources from our community. And it's become super important to me that I make sure that I'm giving back and creating opportunities for youth, especially Indigenous youth,
Mhm.
come up behind us and this road that we're paving here in the Indigenous music scene and the music scene at large. And so I do a couple different things. I work in schools teaching songwriting and music production with an organization called InPath. And then I also have my own workshop series called Air Sessions. And we're almost 4 years old now. We're just wrapping up our third year of that. I don't know why I say we. It's me. I do it all. But I do, of course, have some like awesome sponsors and partners and people that support it. And essentially, that is about creating a space for youth to connect with each other with a really dope, awesome music mentor in the room to learn from. And it's been really fun watching that evolve.
Well, it seems like you've had some fairly high profile people as the mentors involved in that program. Is that just from your own kind of Rolodex? Like, do you just have a good list of names on your phone that you can reach out to, or is this people you've met through the industry over the past decade?
I mean, I keep my ear to the ground. So it's both. I mean, yeah, like I was really fortunate to have worked at Manitoba Music for a contract. I did 10 months with them, and I was the Indigenous Music Program coordinator for a short time. I was covering a mat leave for the current coordinator. And so that helped me meet even more folks. But honestly, the Indigenous music scene, it's a community, right? We kind of all know each other. And if you don't know them, then you know someone that knows them. So it's a very, very tight knit community for sure.
Well, it seems like over the past few years, and this is obviously a good thing, but it seems like the Indigenous community in Manitoba, music community, has become higher profile within the general music scene. I mean, it's always been there. There have always been artists, for decades who have been making great music in Manitoba and in Winnipeg from the Indigenous community. But it just seems like there's more attention being paid now to specifically to Indigenous artists in Manitoba. Do you think that that's an accurate perception, or?
Oh, 100%. And you said it exactly right. We've always been here. We've always been making music, but we are finally getting that recognition and those spots at festivals and at shows. And only a couple of years ago, Indigenous musicians were still vying for that one little crappy stage in the corner where there was one show, and that was the checkbox that was getting ticked, you know? And so the last couple years, there's been a lot of realization that, oh, maybe we should actually care about having an inclusive audience that actually, represents a diverse and indigenous nation.
For
So
sure, yeah.
it's really been exciting to be a musician at this time, because it really does feel like our time is now. And Buffy St. Marie is the one that paved that path, and then the Seaweed and Errol Ranvilles and the War Party, those guys and people came up behind them and just forged it for us. And that's why, like kind of what I said before, it's so important to me that I make sure more are coming up behind me too, and then that momentum just snowballs.
Well, and I guess the young people too, based on some of the workshops you're doing and others are doing, they're realizing that, I think that they can have these opportunities as well, and there's an infrastructure that they can use to their advantage to get where they want to be in their music careers, right?
Exactly. And it's exciting seeing a lot of opportunities now in terms of grants and funding that is specifically for Indigenous identifying folks. And that's new. And we're still fighting for some grant organizations, some funding organizations to make sure that they are funding Indigenous applications. Because there's something to be said about equity when it comes to opportunity, right? And yeah, it's exciting, and that's kind of the work I do, is trying to inspire youth to see that they have potential. Hopefully it's in the music scene, because that's where I love to be and work, and I want to work with them. But I just want them to know that they have a potential, that they can do what they want to do.
And succeed at it and actually get some mainstream attention, right?
Totally. Yeah.
So just to step away from that for a minute, and just going back to kind of your own sound and the type of music that you play. I know you described it as folk soul earlier, and I think that seems very accurate. I mean, it's as a listener anyway, I feel like it's the folk music thing is obvious. You're playing an acoustic guitar a lot. It's a lot of the similar sort of content and even subject matter in some songs. But your voice, I guess, is where the soul element comes from, right? So what is your background as a singer? Like, where does that come from? Because folk music is a very diverse genre. There's a lot of sub genres and sub styles that come out of that. But I mean, you have, I think, a different voice than a lot of folk singers do.
That's true. Yeah. And I mean, when you ask me that question, I'm like, huh, where did that come from? I I've been told there's a lot of artists and storytellers and singers in my family. I don't know them. It's like more like my ancestors. I've come from a long line of them. And so I think that I definitely pull from those that have passed on before me. But I don't know. Like I didn't study music. I it kind of happened. The scene pulled me in a way, and this is so cheesy. Oh my God, you guys are gonna hate me. I think it comes from my soul. The soul music comes from my soul. No, that's kind of how it feels. Is it's just like that's what's there. That's just where it's come from. I listen to all genres. I enjoy lots of different type of music. Um, and that's what comes out. Yeah, I don't really try for it to be one thing or another.
Shit. I think just hang on one second. All right, so um, I guess like what you said about it coming from your soul and that you thought it was kind of cheesy and people are gonna laugh at it, but I think that the idea of soul music, I've always thought anyway, is more than just a specific genre. It's kind of like I think any kind of music can have soul. Like hip hop can have soul, folk can have soul, jazz can have soul. I think it's just like the sort of the genuineness of the person putting the music out there is what gives it that sort of feeling. And I think that in folk music, especially, there's a premium on being genuine and being honest because it's so stripped down, and because you're typically anyway, if you're playing folk music, you're speaking from the heart and saying, giving a personal story, or something that's meant to be listened to, kind of listened to properly rather than just as background music. Do you agree with that?
100%. Like, that's exactly it. First and foremost, I try to be a storyteller. I want to take you on a journey. I want to make you laugh, and then I want to break your heart and make you cry and punch you in the gut and slap you around and then make you laugh again. I want to make you feel something, and that is what inspired me to make music and to make the music that I do is from the artist when I listened to particular tracks and it just like hit me like a truck, you know? And I want to do that to other people because I think there's just this magical transcendence, this communication that can happen whether the story that I'm actually telling is the one that you're hearing. I want you to hear what you need to hear, right?
Well, and once you've put it out there too, it's kind of out of your hands, right? People can interpret it sort of however those words affect them.
And I want them to. I think at first when I first started writing, I was very literal, like this is what I'm doing. Here's where I am, where I'm at. But I've learned along the way that I want more people to find the stories accessible so that it can be what they need it to be. I have always turned to music when I'm, going through something, whether that's like a celebration and I'm feeling really good, or I feel terrible and my heart's breaking and shattering. I turn to music to make me, um, you know, to help me cope. And so I want to offer that to other people because that's what songwriting was for me. It started, out me sitting in my bedroom with the door closed and locked and essentially singing my diary with a guitar.
Right.
And, it's like the therapy that's always been there for me when I can't afford the good stuff.
So, so how do you teach something like that? Because you're working in workshops with youth and encouraging them to, put their music out in the world. And that's such a personal thing. Is it difficult to sort of express that in a way that can convince someone else who's just starting out to do their own version of that? Because you don't want them to be just like you, right? You want them to express themselves in their own unique way.
It is so hard, and the funniest thing I think is like when I talk about it, I'm like, oh, I just do it, and it just comes to me, and it just flows. I can't say that to a kid, right? Because they'll be like, so how do you do this? I'm like, you just do it. Okay, all right, let's actually figure out a plan of how you're gonna do this. So I've encountered that a lot, and then working virtual has been even harder. I did a lot of long distance songwriting residencies virtually. It's hard. It was worth it because it was needed. um, how do you teach that? I think I do a couple of different exercises where I really try to promote a safer space and a vulnerability. And so a tool that I use a lot is writing in a private notebook. So they have their own book, and there's a boundary set with this notebook that if they want to share it, they can. If they don't, it's theirs to be private in. Because as soon as you have a space where you can just be, there's an opportunity for you to start being vulnerable, right? Um, and I love the idea of like flow, like free writing. So you just free, free write whatever comes out of your head. Don't judge it. And I teach that a lot too. That you can't judge what comes out. Ed Sheeran, I think it was, says he writes a song a day. And so I always tell the kids, okay, how many songs does Ed Sheeran actually release a year? Maybe 20, maybe 30 on a really crazy busy year, but definitely not 365. So how many really bad songs did he write? So it's okay if it's not good. Forgive yourself. And there's like traditional teachings surrounding that too, around, honoring all of it. Whatever comes is all part of the process. You have to honor yourself, your art, your creativity, your thoughts, your mind, all of that. So a lot of it really comes around just trying to create a safer space where they can be themselves and they're celebrated for being themselves.
I like that mindset of everything being important. Like even the songs that get thrown out, that's still there's just still value in that because it got you from just being someone sitting down at a blank page to actually eventually creating what you're going to create.
And that's the only rule I have is that say if you write something that you don't like or you make a mistake, you can't scratch it out. You can't throw away the page. You can put a line through it so it indicates I don't want to use this, but it has to still be alive on that page because it's part of the process.
It's like showing your work in math class.
No. Just kidding. I'm really anti math. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everyone. I hate math.
No, I do too. But
Well, it's exactly like that, and that's actually where I got that idea from. Was I was homeschooled growing up for most of my years, and we'd scribble it on the pages, and I remember my mom saying, "Can you please just put a line through it, because then maybe I can read it," you know. So yeah, it is actually like showing your work in math class. It's all part of it. It's part of the process.
it's just a little more creative maybe than answering a question that has a solid answer, right?
Yes, exactly. There are multiple ways to get there, and it's all okay.
So like I said at the outset, I have your EP, your first. I think it's your first one anyway. Um, have you released anything between now and then? I know you've had singles that have come out, but have you released any actual records or EPs or anything? Like it's a long time, right, to go
Is
without a
yeah,
product.
7 years was the time period, and I did a lot of things in those 7 years. I went to school and got a bachelor's degree, and I also survived through a really, really terribly abusive relationship. And that's kind of what this next album is, and I'm so excited to be breathing life into it. Is it's telling that story of okay, guys, hi, I'm back. This is where I was, you know. Stumbled a little bit on my path. I was still going this direction, not quite the way I wanted to be. Here's what happened. Here's the stories into songs. So it is quite a bit of time. And at the same time, though, all of that said, it hasn't felt like the right time to release something until now. I think that I needed to spend a lot of time, like I said at the beginning, figuring out why. Why am I doing this? What for? Figuring out my sound and what producers I wanted to work with. And I had a lot of listening to do, a lot of singing to do. And now is the best time for sure.
Is it kind of cathartic to go back over some of the struggles you've had and kind of are you exercising demons in song form? Like is that what it feels like to get some of this out there?
Absolutely. It's, the songs where I'm feeling triumphant and oh my god, like F you. And this and that. And then there's also those like heartbreaking moments that will be in it. And I'm in the pre-production stages, and some of the songs like I knew would be on the album, but I haven't really worked them or been in the nitty gritty of the creative process with them until now. And it's been a little while, and it's like, oh, ugh, okay, I got some feelings mixed all in. So absolutely, it's all part of that healing journey for sure.
Well, it seems like you've been, I mean, maybe more than a lot of people, active during this pandemic. Like you said, you were doing, remote events with youth and stuff. What has it been like, sort of preparing an album during this bizarre time where everyone's locked in? And I mean, obviously, shows aren't happening. They're starting to happen now, which is fantastic. But it's been what, a year and a half, 2 years almost, where it's just been everyone in their basements, right? Is it weird to sort of be putting this together during all of this?
Yes and no. First off, I just want to say, like, I've been so blessed with opportunities. Um, I have been really busy. I have been super, super busy throughout all of this, and I'm just one of the lucky ones, I think, that has had work. And I was kind of at the beginning of the curve with upgrading my tech. I had kind of like gotten a full studio set up home version right before everything closed down. I was like, oh, thank God I invested. I feel so blessed. Um, it kind of feels like I just have more time. At first, I was really disappointed because I'm about a year behind of when I had like really figured that I was going to be recording the album. I think it's working out for the best though. There was a change in producers. There's a change in kind of my ideas, and it feels more like it's all coming together the way that it was supposed to. Um, and I think that the time was a gift to really again refine this project right down to the branding and the grant applications and the nitty gritty of what it's going to look like and sound like. So it's been a roller coaster, but it's been the coaster I was supposed to be on.
Do you think that the end result is going to sound different now that you've had this extra time than maybe it would have? Like, have you reworked any of the songs or sort of changed the tone of anything because you've had this extra ability to sort of give it an extra listen or rework some of the material?
Totally. Yeah, I'm reworking everything, working directly with one of the producers on the album, Sierra Noble. She and I
Oh,
are
cool.
sitting down. Yeah, she and I are sitting down and working every song. And then we're taking them into the studio to be co-produced with Rusty Mattias, which is pretty freaking cool. He's a Winnipeg hero and legend, on the scene when it comes to music. And so it it's going to be a completely different project than it would have been if this was a year ago, and that would have been awesome too. And the person that I was set to work with originally is the same person that I did my last single with, Milan Andre. It's a really nice guy from the UK. He's originally from Canada, and now he's moved to the UK. And just because of the restrictions, we just can't. It's just not going to work for us to do it in person, and I didn't want to do it virtually. So I figured, okay, I better just try to do it locally. And I think that one of the coolest things is, because I'm doing it locally, I ended up booking um, my most favorite studio in the whole world, which is the No Fun Club, which is just the coolest club I've ever seen in my life. Um,
I've seen photos and it looks incredible.
it's an incredible studio, and I'm gonna try to take as many pictures and videos as I possibly can while I'm in there doing recording, because it's a pretty epic space. So bigger, brighter, better sounding. It's gonna be like the thing. I think I'm like really in my head about it too, as all artists are like, oh yeah, this is gonna be it. This is the thing. But I'm just excited to finally, put it out there and get to work on it.
When are you expecting that that's going to come out? Do you have like a general idea for when that's going to be released yet?
Yes, if the world doesn't end again, here's hoping. The plan is to start releasing some of the songs in like the late spring 2022, and I'll just slowly release them, let you enjoy each of the tracks, hopefully get them on the radio and some satellite play, and then give you the whole album with all of the story afterwards.
Cool. I think that a lot of people are doing that these days too. It's just because I guess the internet has become such an easy tool to, I mean, maybe not easy, but it's become such a convenient tool to release music slowly rather than just putting it all at once. A lot of people have had on the show have been doing the exact same thing. Some of them have even had the album completely finished, and it's just we're gonna wait, we're gonna put out one or two at a time, and sort of let it build like that. And it's kind of a cool strategy.
It's a singles world, right? Like when I'm giving advice to younger folks or emerging artists, um, I usually say like, okay, if you send 10 songs to a radio station, how many songs are they going to play? Two, maybe two of them. If you send each of the song a couple weeks apart, a couple months apart, you're much more likely that they'll play most of them. I think, depending on a million factors, of course, but it's a singles world. Yeah, I think we're just hearing that again and again. And with playlisting opportunities, satellite radio opportunity, you just have a better bet with this like drip release method. Like, here's one. Okay, bye. Here's another one.
That makes sense. I mean, it's because each one has its own opportunity to kind of potentially bubble up and get the popularity. And then if that doesn't work, you've got another one coming 2 months down the road anyway. So, and if it does work, then you have a follow up. So it makes sense for sure.
Exactly.
So what's I guess for people who aren't familiar with your music, what's the best way to find out more about what you're doing? Where can people hear your stuff? What method would you like them to hear your stuff? Because I know there's so many ways people can do it now. Like, do you have a preference of what service they should use? Is it Spotify or Bandcamp or any of these other things?
I really like connecting with folks that want to hear my stuff. So I like to send people to Instagram. I'm there, Ila Barker Music. I've got videos, and there's pictures of my life and the process of making it, and so that's my favorite place to send people, because then I have an opportunity to actually interact with you. I can follow you back and find out who is in the community. And then of course the music is everywhere: Spotify, Apple Music. Apple Music pays more, but I get it if you're, listening to Spotify. That's okay. But pretty much anywhere. But if you want to connect with me, go to Instagram, I'd say.
I like that because it's not just a random number. It's not just, oh, here's one more listener from Winnipeg. You don't know anything about them and you don't know what they're interested in or why they like your music, right? At least with Instagram, you can find all that out.
Yes, I can stalk them. Just kidding.
Right.
Oh, you know how Facebook memories, like it pops up and it's like, here's a memory from 8 years ago. Turns out like 11 years ago. It's so funny because I keep seeing these. I had like a whole like stream of statuses all the time about like joking around about stalking people on Facebook. And I wasn't really stalking people as a disclaimer, but I would, go and find people because that was kind of the I haven't been on Facebook that long. I was kind of a late bloomer with technology and stuff, with social media at least. And apparently I stalked Instagram and Facebook stalk people a lot. I don't do that anymore, let me tell you. But I
Like
have some stalks.
famous people or people that you actually know in real life?
People I knew were like, I don't know, like acquaintances. It's just funny because I keep seeing these statuses and I'm deleting. I'm like, what the heck? Like 11-year past Isla, what were you doing? It's just hilarious. So a lot has changed, and I feel like that's almost like normal now to like go and look at their pictures and do this. But I think it was such a shock when I first got into social media. Like, hey, you guys, like your whole life is on here. You should be careful.
Yeah, and I mean the younger people are that are getting on it too. It's funny because like I'm almost 40, so I started social media whenever Facebook started. I did MySpace before that, but when I make friends with people now, because when you're an adult, you make friends with people anywhere from like 20 to 70, right? And so if I meet someone who and I become friends with them who's in their 20s, if I go back far enough on their Facebook page, they're in high school or they're in junior high school, and it's insane to me to see someone is picture of them when they're 13 when I've known them only as 23 or something, right? So it's kind of a cool feature of it.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, exactly. It's cool, but also it scares me. Like, you guys got a lot of information out here. Anyways, when it comes to being a storyteller, the more information, the better. So keep posting.
I like that. So what like I was saying, you're on every streaming service. People can find, I guess, what the first EP and then all the singles you've released since then, and then this new stuff will be coming out within the next year, sort of
Yes,
slowly.
exactly. Yeah, in
Are,
the new.
are you going to be releasing this new record physically, or are you just doing the digital thing?
Definitely physically, yeah. There's still a market, in some places for CDs, and I'm hoping to do a radio campaign as well. And then, in the Indigenous music scene too, there's definitely a pretty good market for them too. So for sure, and I don't think I don't think I could release an album and not print it. There's just that nostalgia for me. I still buy albums. I don't listen to them anywhere but my car. It's the only place I can. But I love the idea of buying an album at a festival and then trying my darndest to find that artist so they can sign it. And like, I'll never get rid of my CD collection that's signed. Like, it's too cool, right?
Yeah, it's good to hear. As someone who's I'm old and set in my ways, and I still listen to tapes and records and CDs, and I've never got into the streaming thing. So every time I have someone on the show and I hear that they're going to do it physically, it's just like yes, I can I can hear it properly now because yeah. So we're out there. There are definitely some of us out there who still love CDs. So that's really cool to hear.
Nice.
The other thing too is that this being a podcast right now there aren't really many shows happening, but someone could listen to this 6 months from now. They could listen to it a year from now. What's the best option to sort of find out what you're doing show wise in the future? Where will your show listings be posted? Is it Instagram or somewhere else?
For sure, I put them everywhere. But if you're like really wanting to, be in the loop, you can go to my website. I always post them on there. It's been pretty quiet lately, but hopefully, world is changing. I've got a couple bookings in real life. Instagram though, like that's like my hub. Like that's where I live for sure. Instagram's a great place. My website, ilabarker.com. Yeah, yeah, those are the places I'd say everywhere, but for sure those ones.
Awesome.